to do. There's several more people supposed to join the class, so I'll just wait until that happens. Do you have a syllabus? Did you get the syllabus and look at that? We'll go through that a little bit. I'm going to go to a share, and hopefully this is going to be right. Share, and I'm going to look at, let's see. What can you see so far with my share? Anything?
Not yet. Can't
Nope.
see anything.
Not yet. Did you pick the right screen?
I'm going to work on that right now. You don't see anything like the syllabus on the screen right now, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Now I'm going to go over to here and find one. You tell me. You can see that probably, right?
Nope.
No.
I don't think, because you probably have 2 or 3 screens last time you were on your second screen. So did you pick the right screen?
Can you see that? Nothing?
No. Yeah.
I may have to push the button at the time.
Nope, I haven't seen it.
We'll get this down straight and we'll know how to do it each time. Mail.
We got time.
Okay, I know we do. We're good. Let's see here. I'm going to take this and bring that down a little bit. And I'm just trying to make it see my screen on the left. I have 2 screens here. We'll get it settled and then we'll have it done. Well, that right there is not what I need. Probably don't need that. I'll break down. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that one. Get rid of that one. You don't see any of these things that I'm doing, I don't think.
Nope. When I hit share on mine, I can see the 2 screens, so I can just pick the one that I've got the syllabus pulled up. I was just checking for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Revise. Okay, now that I don't need. So let's see here. We need that. Okay, let's see what we got here. Can you see my cursor move?
Nope,
No,
we can't.
not yet.
We can't see your screen yet.
Okay, can't see the screen yet. Okay, we'll get this solved and we'll have it done. Okay, now see. We're going to share window, entire screen.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
No, can't see what you just shared. The windows or the screens, those are on.
Can you see this? Or this? Okay, let's see. I'm doing, that's working. So what is this? Okay. I think what it is screen 2 is going to be, can you see my cursor move now? You can. Can you see my cursor move now? Can you see me?
Well, I can see you because there's a window there. I don't see a second screen that's being shared, or if you're replacing yourself with the screen.
Okay, I think we're going to solve it with this one right here. Can you see my?
There you go. You're loading. Perfect.
Yeah. It's
You
working.
Nailed it.
Now, can you see me?
Yes.
Yes.
You're in the right-hand corner stack.
And you can see the PowerPoint.
Correct.
Oh, we're making real progress now. And okay, now can you see this other thing? The PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Okay, good. See, we got what we need to work with here in just a moment.
Yeah, the only bad thing, Dr. House, is you're using a Mac. That's from a Windows guy. Just the only problem.
I'm hurt. I am so hurt. Were you wanting to pass this exam? You realize we can't criticize a Macintosh.
Oh, it's really true. And then your response should also be, haven't you seen the commercials in the 70s and 80s? And yes, I have.
Well, it's good to have fun.
Yeah.
And I don't think we had anybody else show up. So I'm going to do this so I can see you guys up here, and you can see also, can you see me still?
We
Yes.
sure can.
Can you see each other?
Yep.
Yep.
And then you can see what's on the other side. Okay, great. We're doing good. And so I've got some things to show you in just a few minutes. I'll have advertisements of all my books. We'll take them one at a time and
Nice.
see about getting an order in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to have some way to finance this.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Well, listen, let's take a moment. I'm going to talk about the syllabus, but you've got a syllabus. You've had a chance to read it. It's not as though I have to go through it in depth, but I want to find out if there's any questions as we go through. Okay.
Mhm.
And so here they say the description of the class. It's going to study biblical hermeneutics. So the word biblical is plain to you. I don't know if you know the word hermeneutics. Maybe you do. It's from the idea initially Hermes, which was, a lot of things are from Greek and Roman, and Hermes, the god of who passed messages and such like for the gods and ran around and so forth. And so that concept, the idea of giving information, and the palancing in it. Well, see, hermeneutics is essentially, in the biblical sense, it's not much different from the non-biblical in the sense of the categories we're talking about. How do you understand what is being written? And so there's a lot of confusion on that. Have you heard of the idea of postmodernistic understanding of language and of books, not just the Bible, everything? So
Yeah, it's almost like you aren't even here. We're just all in the matrix.
yeah. And in postmodernism, what they're saying is that the reader determines what the
Meaning is, yep.
what the meaning is. And what we've usually said is that it is the author who conveys the meaning. The author creates the meaning. The reader is to understand and interpret the meaning. But the problem with that view is that people who write books on postmodernistic interpretation of meaning, they don't want you to actually define what the meaning is. They want you to understand their meaning. It's sort of a contradictory idea. You say, well, listen, I'm the one who interprets what is the meaning of the text in the sense of not the interpretation of the text, but the meaning of the text as it's being conveyed. It's the writer who puts meaning into a text, and I am to interpret the meaning of the author, of the writer. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I'm understanding the meaning of the writer. And because so a postmodernistic guy who publishes a book wants you to understand his meaning of the viewpoint that he's arguing that you determine the meaning. So there are people who do that with the Bible. I'm trying to understand what God's meaning is through his what we call interpretation of it. See, I'm trying to understand what words he's using, what concepts he's using, what background he's using. I'm trying to ascertain the book's meaning that comes from the author. Okay?
Yep.
Well, that's the difference here in a lot of this discussion. We're going to be trying to find out how do we go about the process of understanding what God has written in the scriptures. And it will be the same process if we were talking about reading Moby Dick, which was a novel. What is trying to be conveyed. See, we can't determine it. The author determines it, and we try to understand it. Okay, we're together?
Yep.
Okay, now, this course will study biblical hermeneutics, focusing on the literal, grammatical, historical method of interpretation.
Yep.
When we say literal, we do not mean it doesn't possess figures of speech. That's not the discussion. Some people get it mixed up. A person who's actually trying to interpret what an author says, he may find that an author uses a figure of speech. And what does a figure of speech mean? And for example, if I say the man, he kicked the bucket, that's a cowboy thing from years ago. What happened to the guy? He kicked the bucket. It doesn't mean he went out in the street and kicked a bucket. It's a word used in reference. It's a figure of speech to express a literal meaning. The literal meaning is he died. See, kick the bucket is a figure of speech regarding he died. So when we say literal, we try to understand what does the author mean by the words and kinds of language he does. Is it a connotative usage of the language or a denotative usage of the language? Denotation would look at a statement like he kicked a bucket. It would really mean the guy actually went out in the street and kicked a bucket. Whereas connotation is the idea. No, I take it back. The connotation is the idea of trying to convey a meaning to it, even though it's a figure of speech. The Bible has figures of speech. And so what we have to do is interpret that even. We're going to use a literal understanding of it. Now, grammatical, we mean we have to pay attention to the grammar. Is the author using a present tense or a past tense or a future tense, or, what idea? Jesus is coming again is a future idea. See, and so we talk about the literal, that would be coming in as true, but he is coming again may express the future idea, whereas he came would reflect a past idea. And did I lose Shabazz? Okay. So did you go off naturally or purposely?
He's still there. He just has his camera out.
Oh, that's what he has. Okay, that's fine. I just want to be sure that did get lost.
Yeah, I'm just here. I was sweating and I would just.
That's fine. I just want to check on you. So students will critique contemporary hermeneutical theories and theological systems. Now, one of the books that are important to read for this course and for any good course on hermeneutics is to read a book by E.D. Hirsch, Hirsch, and a friend of mine and me. Where is that?
Elliot Johnson.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Can you see this?
Yep.
That's a book that he and I wrote to deal and understand E.D. Hirsch. Now, E.D. Hirsch is a guy that I actually took a course by a man by the name of Elliot Johnson, who's a wonderful interpreter.
Yep.
Elliot, a long friend, times we both taught at Dallas Seminary. I taught it after him. I graduated with a doctorate in law and a doctorate in theology in the same month. and I was looking around for a job, and I was hired by Dallas Seminary. And so, but I had taken a course during my doctoral work at Concordia. I took a study of Johnson, and he used the book by Hirsch. Okay, and so if you notice here that this particular book discusses then what the ideas of E.D. Hirsch are. So you have that book, right? Or you have access to it?
Yeah, and didn't you co-author a book with Hirsch? Is that what you just said?
I do it with Hirsch. I authored a book with this person, and we had scholars come in who used Hirsch to deal with Hirsch. By the way, it's interesting that E.D. Hirsch wrote the foreword for us, which was very good. He's not a believer per se, as far as I know, but he taught at the University of Virginia, and his thinking is very, very good. And you could get this book. You could also find Hirsch's book, and that would be good too. Okay. Now, a lot of people have really hard times interpreting Scripture, particularly today. I don't know if you know what's going on in the evangelical world, but there are individuals, for example, who are evangelical, the quotation marks, evangelical, and they're really not following through because they are arguing now that, for example, the Genesis account of the creation and the fall and the Noah's Ark and all this, none of those things actually happen. Those are myths. And God is teaching us theology through the myths. And I'm saying baloney, that's an important word to use. Baloney means it's a dumb idea because scholars, even who are not even believers and who work in the area of language, have said that the intent of the author is clear, that he's using language that is historical narrative in nature. And so you can't take it and say it's mythical. One of the guys says, we know it's mythical because you have light before the sun and the moon is created. Sun and the moon's fourth day, you have light initially. He says, you can't have that. You've got it before the sun and the moon. And I'm thinking, well, I happened to read a passage in the book of Revelation in chapter 22, and it says something like, there's no more, let's see, there's no more need for the sun and the moon because God is the light. So what is he going to do with that? That's mythical too. So people do strange things with language to get at the theology they want the text to say. Now, the people that are arguing this, by the way, are they've converted to evolutionary thought is what has happened. And they belong to an organization that's an evolutionary organization. So people will do strange things to get other ideas in. So the point of it is, when I read the text, I read it literally. Now, that doesn't mean you can have language that's used that's figurative, but the figurative language means something quite literal. See, that's like the example I gave you a while ago. That's a figurative expression, but it means something quite literal, and that's important. Are we together? Everybody understands that?
Sure do. Yeah, I don't want to speak for Chavez, but yeah, for me.
And we're going to be going through this. I'm just starting off right now. We're just getting going. So there's a reason why we're doing this. We're trying to be sure that we're going to be faithful to the text of Scripture that we read. And we're not going to just simply make up stuff. And I'll show you something in just a moment, because I'm going to talk about a project that I've been working on that you might have interest in. I write all the time. I've got so many books in the making. You ever seen any of my charts books? If you haven't, they've sold quite well. I've done several charts books on theology and cults and world religions and New Testament and all sorts of areas. And those have done quite well. I'm starting a new series of charts books, which are a different reading of the New Testament and the Old Testament, and archaeology and theology of the church fathers. Yes.
What's a chart book?
You don't know what a charts book is?
Uh-uh.
Oh my goodness, these are really good. They sell quite well, by the way. What can I show you that would be a charts book?
Is it a type of publisher?
No. A charts book is a book that's done by someone like me. I got the idea initially several years ago in the late 70s and early 80s, and nobody had done one. And I came out with it, and ever since then, they've grown and grown, and people buy them. Because what I do is try to take ideas and put them together, organized form, and
a chart.
Of a chart, so that you will have an understanding of what's going on. In other words, what I'm doing in the current charts books, for example, in the New Testament, just to give an example, I'm basically trying to construct the information that's inside let's say, the book of Matthew. I'm trying to take the information out of Matthew, the people, the events, the concepts, and on, and put it into an organized form so that if you understand those portions of the book of Matthew as expressed in the charts, then you will essentially have the essence of what Matthew's all about. And I guess I could even maybe sometime I'll send you an example of it and you can look at it. Okay. And but I find charts books help people to learn quickly and remember.
Yeah, they sure do.
Yeah, and that's the reason I do them. And I've done, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them, 10 of them, I don't know. But anyway, well, I'll let you see one of those later. Now, so we're going to try to teach you something about how best to think about ideas, knowledge, what it is. And that's the process we're going to go through in a class on hermeneutics. How do you take a text and understand what the author is actually talking about? That's the reason we say literal. That is, people tend to write in ways that express not a bunch of figurative expressions, everything's figurative, but ways in which you have basic ideas that are expressed that you can grab hold of. So literal, grammatical, people use language, past tense, future tense, all these things. People, literal, grammatical, and historical, that is, authors tend to, like Luke. Luke wrote a great historical piece, see, and it has to be understood from his angle and what he would mean by his words. Literal, grammatical, historical interpretation. So the Bible is a required textbook because of that and of what we're doing, because it's speaking about something that really happened and really means something, and we can understand it by following a process. Now, there are people that are allegorists. You've heard that term? This was done by some church fathers who were in Egypt a couple centuries after the time of Christ.
Augustine
Well, yeah, Augustine to some
and
degree.
Origin too, right?
Origin specifically. Augustine, what he did, he had connection to various people, but uh, he initially didn't hold that view. He was sort of swayed into it because they said there's got to be a greater meaning in the text, and so you have people like Origin, as you mentioned, and sometimes several people during the time of the ante-Nicene period who felt that the scripture needed to have a greater impact, something more significant, and so they weren't happy with something that's not more luxurious in form. So that's what they did. Now, assignment 1. Read through the 10 articles by Dr. Mackey and Dr. House posted. You need to read that. Now, at this point, and you'll see this, I've written about 150 articles, and I haven't got them all out on my website yet, but if I'm trying to gradually get them all out there. And so I have articles that deal with all sorts of issues, and that might be helpful to you. And then when you look on that, there's also on different topics. Those are my articles. My books, I don't expect you to go buy them all, not even maybe one, maybe the one for the class. But I've done about 45 of those so far. So I do like to write, and I hope I'm writing things that are very valuable to read and easy to understand. Both are important. You have something, Richard?
Yes, when we talked last time in the last meeting, you had specifically said when we go look for the files on your articles to make sure, I don't know if there was a please in there, but please make sure that they were along the lines of hermeneutics and Bible study and stuff like that. And the files that are on, I'm looking at our Calvary dashboard under the files, under courses and files. You have, there are several articles that are there that are helpful.
Good. Well, I try to write in reasonable and understandable form, and there's no point trying to confuse people as I go. And I don't try to use big words necessarily. You only use them as they're necessary. And so you'll find out in just a moment. I'm going to show you some stuff, and you'll see where to find some articles that might be of help. And I have a guy. Unfortunately, I didn't have to put together my website. Somebody paid somebody to do it. And so just as a favor, and what we're finding in that website is that there are just a lot of ones I just haven't had a chance to put up yet. There's so many. And I keep writing and writing. I love to write. And hopefully that these things would be helpful for people. They can see, I mean, I'm teaching you now about things, but if you have something in writing, you can sort of keep it with you. You can recheck it. You can verify it. You can say, oh, now I understand, and stuff like that, assuming I don't write poorly. So assignment 2 is to read the expository hermeneutics. So you have some articles, then you're going to read the one on expository hermeneutics, advancing the discussion. And that book is listed there. I think Dr. Gramacki put that on. But that's a guy by the name of Johnson, Elliot Johnson. He was the guy, he's the guy I was talking about, that when I was in my doctoral studies, I was allowed to take one doctoral course away from the university. And I took it under Elliot Johnson. That was a great experience because we could spend one-on-one talking for an entire quarter of work. And I respect his work considerably. So I think I'm carrying on somewhat he would agree with. Now, assignment 3, read the book by me and Whelan. That's one I mentioned here. Now, that's a big book, I know. So you can read it as you're able to get through it, and hopefully you'll be able to do that. Assignment 4, write a research paper summarizing the hermeneutics of dispensational premillennialism. Now, are you familiar with what dispensationalism is? Okay, I've written on that some. I actually got through writing an article that I'm hoping to put into print before long on what I'm calling biblical covenantalism. A lot of people would say, well, that when you say the concept of covenantalism, that's opposite of dispensationalism. And it is if you do it in a certain way. For example, if I go to the book of Genesis and in the garden, and I say, well, in the garden, God created a covenant with Adam and Eve, and then I have to be able to demonstrate in what sense did he do that covenant? Was that the first real covenant? Well, they say, well, God made a covenant in eternity. Jesus and the Father made a covenant with each other regarding this. I'm saying these are theological covenants. What I argue in my article that I'm writing, and I've done about, I don't know, about 50, 60 pages on everything. And what I've written on that so far is that the covenants of the Bible that are stated are historical covenants. The first one was to Abraham. God came to Abraham and gave him two things: a covenant that was unilateral. Speaking as a lawyer here, it was a unilateral covenant. It's also an unconditional covenant. By unilateral, I mean by that Abraham wasn't walking down the street and saying, God, can we make a deal? Let's make a deal. See, it's a covenant that God and Abraham sort of got together and decided to do. I would suggest to you there's nowhere it says that. In fact, what you find is God coming by himself to Abraham, and Abraham is shocked. you know that God of the universe comes there, and I mean, why did God pick out of all the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people at that time, why did he pick Abraham? Was there something special about him that nobody else had? You know what? God never told me or you or anybody else why he picked Abraham. He picked him because he wanted to pick him, and he has his own reasons, and I'll leave it to him. I'll leave it to God why he does what he does. I can't read the mind of God per se. So first of all, it's unconditional, and it's three-part. It's made up of forming a kingdom, a land, and being a inspiration to the remainder of the world. Through him, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. And then the second thing is, it's not only unconditional, not only unilateral, it's unconditional. God doesn't say, if you blow something here, I'm going to renege on you. There's no more covenant, because God said there's no conditions. That's a fascinating idea. And that is the idea that develops from Abram to Abraham through all the way the nation of Israel, all the way into the modern era of God working in his people and the Messiah and all these things unilateral. By the way, but what about if human beings break the covenant? Does God say, well, then I'm not going to deal with you anymore? What would be the problem with that?
I mean, what would be the problem with that for all of
Well,
humanity, or just Abraham, or?
for the integrity of the Abrahamic covenant, remember, it's unilateral, not Abraham and nobody else.
Yep.
That's by unilateral. It's also unconditional. That is, whether
Yep.
you come through or don't come through, God's going to keep it. Abraham may blow it, but God's going to keep it. By the way, you have to read Genesis 12 and 15. That's very
And
important.
18. Yeah.
Yeah, because God creates a covenant in which he walks through the pieces. If the ancient world, this is how they made a deal. When they would cut the animals, and they didn't cut them like this. They cut them like this, half and half. God cut, he had Abraham cut the covenant, and Abraham was put to sleep, so like Adam, and then God walked through the covenant pieces himself, which says Abraham was not required to walk through the pieces. Whether it's fulfilled or not depends on God's faithfulness, not Abraham. But what God did say, like in Deuteronomy and places, if you don't obey the covenant, I'm going to give you a good spanking.
Mm-hmm.
If you obey the covenant, I'm going to bless you like crazy.
Yep.
It's like
Deuteronomy 28.
It's like having a son with a bicycle. You buy him a bicycle. It's all unilateral. He didn't buy it. It's not a joint purchase. You buy your son a bicycle, and then he gets out and starts doing something he shouldn't do. He says, okay, I'm going to take your bicycle away for 2 weeks. He says, it belongs to you, but I'm not going to let you use it for a couple of weeks. And then you can drive it again. Well, see, that's what happened in the covenants. If you didn't obey the covenant, God would send plagues, or maybe the armies would come through, or some way they would get a spanking. On the other hand, if they were faithful, God would bless their land, and they would have all sorts of crops and all sorts of stuff like that. So see, that's the covenant. And we see those are just a few covenants in the Bible, really. So that's important to know. But that's the reason I wrote a thing on biblical covenantalism, which I say that's the true idea of dispensational thought, and I'll develop that more. Now,
I saw that in your file list that we can in the thing that we can actually read that article.
oh, okay. So I've done that. So I've turned it in. Okay. I forget. I keep writing stuff. I forget what I've finished. But if I haven't, I have it done. I think I could send it on to you. So write a research paper summarizing the hermeneutics of dispensational premillennialism. Now, premillennialism, that says what? That we believe that that there is going to be a millennium, 1,000 years of time after the time of the rapture, right? In which we will actually be with Christ.
Right.
And he will, however, come before the millennium, not afterwards. Okay? Now, that's not the same thing as pre-tribulationism. And the difference between the two is that pre-trib says that Christ will come before a tribulation period of 7 years. Premillennialism says Christ will come before a period of 1,000 years. And they're talking about different scenarios. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good distinction.
Yeah. And I do believe in premillennialism and pre-tribulationism for several reasons. But there are people who are mid-trib who believe in a premillennial. So it varies with things. Okay. So assignment 4, there's that you're going to have to write a paper that deals with the concepts that are found within literal, grammatical, historical interpretation, which we haven't gotten to yet. Assignment 5, write a research paper, and you can deal with these various kinds of questions I have listed there. You can see the grading scale. Now, where we are now, we're going to talk about these 3 things tonight. How do we know what we know? The nature of meaning, interpretation, and application, and hermeneutics and theological interpretation. Now, I don't know whether we'll get them all done, but we'll try. because we've been held up getting on, trying to get everything working and being sure. And we still don't have everybody from the class here. And apparently, so I don't think I have anything. Can you see these things up here on the top?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything I missed pushing that would have kept anybody out, but I'm thinking if there are more than 3 people, I don't know where they are right now. So I think
I think there's 4 or 5 of us. So
Yeah.
Mikkel must be doing something for Word of Life, and then I don't know the other gentleman. He must be someplace. But
Yeah.
you're recording it, so they'll be able to see it. Yeah.
they'll be able to watch it. But I was just hoping I haven't tried. I'm not really good at some of this technical stuff, and sometimes I make mistakes. That's why I put a little thing on I have a note right here on my screen that says Calvary course, join, start recording, share, stop recording. Just to be sure I do it.
Well, Chavez, which is clear across the world, and the farthest person, he made it.
Well,
I
I'm
was
glad.
also, yeah, Professor.
Well, let's keep moving then. This is week 1. Then we'll have week 2. You can read these. I don't have to read them for you. But these are the things we're doing tonight. And each time we'll have, here's a bibliography. You can look. For example, E.D. Hirsch, that's another book he did. That's not the only book. He did that first one on the interpretation. And I wonder if we have anybody else. There's Walt Kaiser. You're familiar with his name probably. Anybody else maybe that would be Bernard Ram. That's an important book. That was been out. Now Ram is reformed. He's not exactly where I am on everything, but nonetheless, he's got a pretty important book to use. So if you can come across these sometimes, they would be helpful books. Roy Zook this is not really a really detailed kind of book. It's more of a practical biblical interpretation, more of a practical book than the others. Okay, so that's that. I think we've done enough. Any questions? Because I want to move right in now to the subject area, because I'm going to give you a break every little while, at least a couple times tonight. And so let me go ahead and move away from this and now move to this. Okay, you with me? Can you see that?
Yes, Professor.
Very good. Now we're going to start going through here and talk about the topic. And if you have any questions, I want you to feel free to do it. Let me know, because we'll stop and we'll discuss it and make it clearer to you.
Dr. House, are these files available for us to read afterwards?
You mean the PowerPoint?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. I don't have any problem with that. The only thing I wouldn't want is if you were to actually put it out somewhere, to someone else, or if you do something in a context that you don't indicate at least that it's the product I put together.
Yeah, I mean, everything's on. Yeah, everything's on there, so that's great.
Yeah, other than that, there's no problem. I want you to have all you need to work with, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let me get rid of the me and Force Wheeling, okay? Now, let's see. We're going to go on. Huh?
Yeah, I was thinking, can you hear me, Professor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that if we can create a WhatsApp group like that, then we can reach out our other members easily. Like if they're not in class, we can ask them, like Mikhail and the other man. So that can be an easy way to access to, because they're right now they're not joining the class, and if there will be a certain type of group, then we can reach them very easily.
Yeah, well, if we'll have these things videoed, so if you talk to anyone, for example, that's not here tonight, they'll be able to watch the video that we've done together, and that should be adequate for them. And if they desire some of these articles and slides and whatever, I'm not hiding them from you. I want to make them available to help you out. I just want to be sure that they're represented as, not having, if you put this in a book and you say, well, look at the new book I wrote, then it wouldn't be a proper thing to do. So how do we know what we know? I have another little thing I did at a conference, and I haven't, I think, I don't know if it's on the website or not, but it's called The Truth About Truth. And so this is how do we know what we know? And before I move any further, I think what I will do is go here and show you something. And if you have some interest in this, you can take a look at it later. Let me see if I can come up with it. Chrome.
That article, how do we know truth is truth, is in the file section.
I forget what I put out. I mean, I just keep writing things. I've got a new one on the whole issue of Islamic and Judaism.
Ah,
And I haven't turned it out yet, but I've been working on it. And it will be, but I'll discuss that sometime with you later. Let me move on to here. Can you see this? Yes.
see just the PowerPoint? Yes.
A thing that says Google.
Yeah,
Or
we
do
saw.
move it to
Yep,
here.
here it
Oh, no.
is. There it
Yes,
is.
yes. No, no. we
Yeah,
can
bring
see.
it back. Bring it back.
I will. I'm just going to
Okay.
make it
It's
smaller.
gone. It's gone.
I'm
Yeah, it's
making it,
gone now.
there we are. I want to
There you
make it,
go.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to make it smaller. So I had to get it where you can see it better. I'm going to teach you some stuff, but I want to show you this. I'm always hesitant. I'm not trying to, as I toot my horn, as they say. I write. That's what I do. I mean, I've been doing it since you realize my first article was in high school to 2 international magazines. I was in the 10th grade. I've written them my whole life, and I enjoy it. But on the other hand, I'm able to make mistakes like anybody else, and sometimes I don't maybe even do something as well as I should. But the point is, I try my best, and so on different topics. Well, the Lord, I think, brought to me some ideas. I want to show you a couple here, and you can write these down if you want. But I want to show you right here. If you have an internet, see that right there at the top? Can you read
Yep.
HW?
Yep.
What happens when I do this? I'm going to click return, and there I am. This is my Lake Kinneret, sometimes called the Sea of Galilee.
Right.
And I still do take people to Israel and Jordan and Greece and Egypt and all those places and take tours, but not as much as I used to. I've been to Israel about 45 times. I lived there some even. That's a great place to learn a lot about the Bible.
Are you on the Mount of Beatitudes? Is that behind you?
What you're seeing here, yes, this is the area. If you were standing there with me, you would need to not walk another 20 or 30 feet or 50 feet, something that you would be at the hill kind of area. But yes, this is near and Jesus at that point would have, looked out from that and you'd have this lake. I just got through preaching a sermon, what is today? Monday, yesterday, called the sorrows of basically of life and the fact of how God deals with them. And some really important things dealt on the Sea of Galilee with the disciples. And I went through that. By the way, that is available to watch on the internet if you ever want to. But the point I'm making here, this is my website. So this has some things that are helpful if you ever want them. And I'm not really trying to make any money on this. You can go and find some things and download them and use them, and hopefully I deal with the area of theology and politics, apologetics.
Apologize.
Also, I deal with law because I've worked the Supreme Court some. I've written books on law because I was a law professor for several years, and biblical archaeology and theology and all those kinds of things I work in. So you can go to this on your own, and this is all I'm going to advertise it. You can go to this on your own if you want to find things. These are articles you can go to, tours you can go on, and there's also books that I've done, and you can go through and look at all those things. And for example, right here, full areas of theology and apologetics, faith and law, biblical archaeology. So you can click this, and then it will take you to various books that I've done. And also, various articles. You'll notice these ones that are not red. These are ones I've got them. I just haven't given them to him yet. I'm still busy trying to come up with stuff. But I deal with all sorts of issues: role of women in the church, hermeneutics. The questions of the relationship of the Father to the Son, baptism, everything you can imagine. I've tried to work through, and a lot of those things you talked about, Richard, relating to Corinth, I have there. This is, by the way, the Storms of Life stuff that I did. And you can watch these videos. And none of this costs anything. And if it helps you in some way, or, gives you ideas, you're welcome certainly to learn from it, okay? So that's what this is. And then I have courses. This is sort of good. You can go to my courses, and I have courses. These are actual full courses. It's like taking an entire subject area in a college or seminary, and it's not just one thing. That's the general topic. If you push this, you see that I have different. These are class periods. This is this course. These are all the class periods going through theology on the question of hermeneutics that we're doing. That's pretty substantial. And then if you go over here, you can go to another topic. Courses, you can go to Trinitarianism, for example. Talks about the doctrine of Trinity. And again, these are here. You can go through and take this thing of God, Christ, and the Holy Spirit. This is no cost. You just watch it and use it. Okay? I just want you to know there's things for you that will help you possibly, and you have the freedom to use them. And so there you have the, I've got all sorts of other stuff here, but you can, this donate thing is not directed at me. This is to help somebody that needed some help. And my wife wanted to do this, so I said, have her put it on. This right here, by the way, if you'll notice, you know what that is? That's the Bible. Can you see my little logo? That's the Bible. This is law.
Law.
And culture issues. For example, I've worked on several books on the issue of right to life and the question, those kinds of issues, abortion. This right here refers to an author. That's what I do a lot. And last of all is biblical archaeology. So all those are sort of areas. And so you can run and look at these things if you want to, and that would help you. One other thing is this, and I'll shut up. You'll only hear this one time. This is something new I think the Lord gave me. I was at Caesarea Philippi. That's where Jesus was talking to Peter and the group. Whom do men say that I am? Peter said, you're the Son of God. Well, I always, when I take groups there, I let them sort of roam around after I've taught them and showed them stuff. And then I usually pray or thinking, and I was thinking, I wish I could take more people to explain the Bible to them through looking at the culture and the landscape and all the things that are going on. Most tour guides are not that great from my experience. So I want to make sure they really understand the Bible by knowing, for example, if there's a gazelle mentioned in the Bible or a coney mentioned in the Bible, I think they ought to be able to look and see what it is. I went to the Biblical Museum in Jerusalem where it has every biblical animal and took a picture of all of them. And sometimes I took them on sites too. Why did I do that? Because if you're reading the text, I want you to see what it's talking about. So everything that I see in culture, everything I can see in geography, and everything, I want to make it so you can identify. Now, here's what's come of it. This has taken a long time, and I'm not quite finished. But let's see, where is it? It's right here. It's called the House Visual Study Bible. Click that. Here's the study Bible as you look at it. It's under hvsb.app. And what you have here, these are daily readings, like in Genesis and Matthew and Mark and so forth. But let's say you wanted to jump to another passage. I'll show that to you too. But right now, if you'll notice, there are study helps as you read through. For example, this is Acts 17 to give you an idea. If you were to go to Acts 17, these are the shows of things, the places in Greece and the mountains and places all those issues. There's also, these are the categories, photographs. And by that way, that also includes what they call drones to get it from a different angle in the sky, maps, and also have charts in here, videos that are taken, artifacts that you see in museums and other, even on site, word studies, ancient sources, biographies, charts. These are all available when you go to them. And then my programmer put together, he also put it on where it would work on the phone if you had a phone. But then I go through all that and explain all of that. And these are people that I work with on different things. So let me just give you an idea. For example, let's say I want to go to Genesis chapter 1. Come over here to Genesis, go to chapter 1, click it. Here you have it. This is the book of Genesis. If you'll notice as you go down, it's yellow. You go down to the next one, it changes yellow to the verse 2. But this changes also. Notice the ones on the side you see that are marked out, you'll see that it changes when you get to here. It changes different ones because these areas are discussed. These are discussions and pictures and videos and so forth from the biblical passages. That makes sense to you? And so we go through here, and you can just run through. For example, I have something that happened. Let's see. I think I can go one more time. Let's see. Oh, here it is, right here. Go here, and for example, this talks about the heavens and the earth. A guy says that Genesis is not historically or scientifically accurate. By the way, I think evolution's a philosophy, not actually.
Correct. That's right.
It's not real science. So
Yeah.
what happens? I decided what I'll do is do this. I'm going see what's there. I'm going to come over and click this. This right here demonstrates what mainland science says happened. This is what you see in the same exact order in the book of Genesis. Now, how did that happen? And so the point of it is, I go through here, and so you can look at various biblical studies that I've done on it. I've got a pastor that put 200 devotionals in it, who did a phenomenal job. He just wanted to do it. And so I have maps that you can watch at, and you do this and you get a view. So I try to put in here everything you could possibly want to understand scripture. And so that's what I've done here. I'm not going to go into any more, but the point of it is it's a tool that could probably be of real help. Oh, there is one thing I can tell you that, let's see, the Bible in a year. You can go here and follow this procedure to go through the Bible, day by day or week by week or whatever. And I also have varieties of these that you can find. Let me go back to here. So if you go here, let's see, study help sides to take. Oh, see, where is my Bible study? I have to get more familiar with this. This is very new. We've made it a little differently for people to make it more understandable. But I have all the daily Bible readings in here you can run to, or you can look here and just look at it. You can look at a site if you want, and where Paul was at the Areopagus, or you can look at various things that are recognizable artifacts that explain the Bible, and just goes on and on and on of things. These are all the altars of one God that Paul talks about in Acts 17, and it just goes on and on and on. So anyway, the point of it is it's quite a nice little tool, and you might want to look at that. Now, I'm going to quit that down. That's all my advertisements you'll see, but it might be something worthwhile for you. Okay, we'll close that up.
Is it okay to correct your professor?
Sure, I've made mistakes before.
Well, it's not really a correction. It's just sort of a, I don't know how Chavez feels, but when you showed it last time and then you showed it this time, I wouldn't say at all in any way that you are promoting your material to be purchased at all. And I don't think that you need to feel bad about it, at least to me. I can't speak again for Shabazz, but what I appreciated is if when someone puts in the time and work that you do to have this and then make it available as a resource, it'd be like I always view art when somebody wants to give you a piece of art or take less for it. It's like, no, I want to honor the person that has actually done the work.
Well,
So you don't have to apologize for that at all. That's
well,
all I want to just say. I appreciate it.
well, thank you very much. I mean, you're my students. You're in a class that you can't, you really can't leave it. But no,
Mhm.
there's a yes and no to that. All my website with all that stuff is all free for you.
Yep.
The study Bible is not free because I have to keep paying a programmer and other people to do things. And so I charge this terribly expensive amount. This is what I in the United States. I don't know what it charges other places. But I was on a call with 8 different countries who told me we have some of the Bible in our land, but we've never seen what you've done. Would you make it available to us? So I am working arrangements to try to get the study Bible into a bunch of different countries, hopefully 40 or 50 different countries, and to help other people out too. But I have to charge something for the study Bible, and that is $5 a month, which is essentially, I say, 1 cup of coffee a month, and that will basically take care of it. So $5 a month, $50 a year. That gives you a $10 cut. Because I haven't tried to get rich on it, but I do have to pay for things. A programmer like I have is doing this as a ministry, as you can know, but I pay him every month. I have to sort of make up for it. He's now in China doing ministry while he's at the same time he learned Chinese very thoroughly, and he's doing his stuff in China. So anyway, this is going to be available. It's right now available, but it's growing and growing, and we're doing more and more that you haven't even seen.
Yep.
There's never been a work like this. I know people. The guy, for example, Bible Hub, which has 80 million people looking at it, 80 million. The guy who did all of that told me this is a phenomenal work that nobody's done, and they actually push it on Bible Hub. So I'm open for anybody who wants to use it. I do have to charge enough to at least pay for it being used. So
Yeah.
thank you for what you're right. I appreciate that.
Yeah. We know John Isett very well too. He lent us his databases for the back end of our site.
Are you saying John at Bible Hub did?
Yep. Isett, John Isett.
He asked me to be on his board, by the way.
I don't
So
blame him.
John's a good guy, and so he's been a promoter himself. So uh, I think we're actually going to go to AI. So all my talks, which are many, I took professional film crews over several times to do stuff, and all my video talks throughout. They want to take it and make it so that at various maybe 40 countries or 50 countries, it will be looking like I'm speaking in Pakistani or something. It will be looking I'm talking like in maybe in France or whatever. I'll be talking English, but it will look like the other. That's
Yep.
how it works. And so we're probably going to do that. But this is for the cause of Christ. Ultimately, I really received strong impression from the Lord when I was at Caesarea Philippi to do this. So anyway, let me go on. Uh, Now, week 1, if you'll notice, we have a lecture 1. Well, I haven't gotten to that yet because of other stuff getting going. So what I'm going to do is take a 10-minute break for you, and then let's be back in 10 minutes, okay?
Hmm.
Okay, it's 7:07 for me.
Okay. Sounds good.
Put my finger up. Okay. I'm going to finish my dinner, my wife will. Ah. Ah. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Well, Pakistan, I've never been that far. Um, have you lived there all your life?
Yeah, I'm born here.
Okay. You know, I haven't got a lot I can tell you on this. I'm not sure even what happened, but at one point in my life, I actually found myself on some kind of site talking to some Pakistanis
Yeah.
there. Yeah, so it was interesting to interact with them a little bit, and you know, they were fairly close to India where they lived, and
Yeah.
so how
Yeah.
would is Pakistan sort of a long, wide country, or is it tall, or if you can look at a map, is it are you at the west or the east, or where are you on
Yeah.
there?
We are actually less white, but very long one country. And
Uh-huh.
we shared a long border with India
Uh-huh.
and very long border with Afghanistan.
And how
And,
did you
and
Calvary,
uh, sorry,
the university, how did you happen to come across it?
I actually, I was a chemistry, I'm actually chemistry professor in Pakistan. I
Uh-huh.
teach chemistry here, yeah. But
Oh,
with that chemistry, as I was just explaining in my taught in the first class, that my passion was at some point in 2009 or 7 was chemistry. But what the pathetic situation with the Church of Pakistan that was in my heart that God convicted me to see was the theological condition and theological situation of
uh-huh.
the Pakistani church, that it is suffering a lot due to lack of resources, deep understanding of the doctrinal teachings. Then I pursue to start thinking that I need to do something for this church.
Uh-huh.
And I totally changed myself that I will not pursue my high studies in chemistry. So now I will seek and dig deeper about the God, the Christian God. So then I started pursuing my studies, and there was not a can say a seminary here in Pakistan that I was feeling that I have to be go there and find some studies. So then I working on online on different universities. Then by God's grace, I did my BA in biblical studies, then my MDiv, and then online I just find the Calvary. So now
Did you say
it's
you did
this
legal studies? Did you say legal?
not legal,
Oh, okay.
but
I was thinking maybe you said the law, like I went
oh no.
law as
uh,
well as theology.
yeah.
Anyway, it's good to have you in class. I'm glad you're here. And Richard ran away, so hopefully we'll give him time to get back. But we'll get going here and start working through these PowerPoints, and you'll be able to look at them later, and you can sort of begin to think through some of the things we talk about. Okay,
Yeah, sure, sure.
Richard, are you coming back? I guess I gave too long a time.
I
There,
heard you. I
there,
heard you the whole time.
there he is. There he is.
We call what you just did Wisconsin guilt. It
Really?
it got me back to my chair really fast.
I tell you, I'm glad I had an effect on you. That's way. Let's move. We're going to move faster now. Week one, lecture one. How do we know what we know?
Yep.
And I was reading a judge one time who was talking about people, and he was talking about something about sort of a Christian perspective in theology. And he said, well, that's not real knowledge. That's just belief. I'm thinking, well, um, Christians have knowledge, but is knowledge just because it's theology non-knowledge? And so what do we know? What we know? How do we know it? The nature of knowledge. That's what we're going to talk about. So if I can get this thing moving, let's see here. There we are. We're going to start moving through this. Simply put, knowledge is justified true belief. Now that I want you to understand. All three portions are necessary for knowledge. Knowledge is a part of it. And so people who claim to know everything really believe something. It's not know something. So we're going to discuss that question. Simply put, knowledge is justified true belief. Do some people know while others only believe? Scientists know truth, but theologians believe truth. So that happens a lot in the evolutionary debate where, oh, well, we know all this stuff. Quite honestly, I was reading I wish I could think of the guy's name right now, but he was a professor at Harvard in biology.
Dr. Stephen Meyer.
No, that's not him.
Oh, okay.
This guy was, I'll find it for you and show you. But this guy is a professor at Harvard, won the Nobel Prize, taught biology, and he's talked about irreducible complexity. He said, now, it was disproven in the last century that you cannot have something come out of nothing and just develop. He said that just doesn't happen. He says, but the only other possibility, I got this out of a scientific magazine, the only possibility is God. And he said, I don't want to believe in a God. So I believe
he has to be accountable.
He says, so I will believe in what is impossible. And I thought, oh, that's really good science. And people do that. You know, they don't want to commit to something that would control them and give them guidance and expect things. So they come with some stupid idea that you can have. There's a song, nothing plus nothing equals. There's a song really that people used to sing. Nothing plus nothing equals, let's see, nothing. Nothing produce something. You go back in the study Bible I just talked to you about. I put a bunch of things from Greek philosophers, a whole slew of Greek philosophers whose names you would know most of. All of them said the same thing. These are Greeks. These are not Christian theologians, in which they say it is impossible for something to create itself. You cannot have the non-existent to create that which is existent.
Right.
And so these Greek philosophers weren't dummies about these things, and neither was that song. Nothing does not produce something. And so you have to have God who is not created, but it has always existed. Now you may say, how did he come into exist? He didn't come into exist. He's always existed.
That's right.
And so he brings into existence what did not exist. Now, that's a hard concept, I understand, to work with. But it certainly doesn't make any sense to say, like this guy did, that I'm just going to believe that something can create nothing, nothing can create something. That's a nonsensical statement. Anyway, scientists know truth, but theologians believe truth. True or false? The answer is
true. Scientists know truth, but theologians believe truth. I don't know. I don't know, because for me, go ahead.
It's meant to be false.
Yeah, because for me, what's true? Man's knowledge or God's knowledge? God's knowledge is true.
Yeah. But even humans, apart from God, cannot create something out of nothing. It's an impossible thing to happen.
That's right.
And the fact is, scientists don't somehow know what is true, and yet theologians like us, that we have this thing that we can't prove. Well, they can't prove theirs either.
That's right.
Now, faith then is this belief. Belief, is believing what is contrary to the evidence.
It's false.
That's a false. Why have I got that there? Who put that there?
I don't know, but it's kind of cute.
Yeah, it is. I'm trying to figure out why it's there. Why did they get there? I don't know how it got there. I think, I don't know. I really can't tell you. Moving right along. In other words, what does it mean to believe something? See, that's what we're going to deal with. We've got three components, see, to work with. All right. One of the components is belief, subjective in nature. Yes. Subjective aspect is a mental state of conviction. In other words, it's an act performed. I believe something. I believe that. It's not wrong to say I believe because every single person on the face of the earth believes something. So it's not something to get away from, but it's a fact is it's a subjective action of the mental state. It's part of what we're going to call knowledge and faith and something else. Let's keep moving. So it's a mental state. It's an act performed. I believe that. People do it all the time. I believe this and that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Subjective aspect is a mental state of conviction. Okay. It's subjective. It's a mental state. In other words, it's an act performed. The objective aspect is the content of what is. See, I believe is a mental conviction, and I believe what is, in fact, what is the objective reality. See what I'm saying? I believe that I am existing. I believe I'm having a program with you guys on it. See, it's always, I believe something. You understand me? The something is a reality that's objective in nature, whereas the other is a subjective, but they're both necessary. Nobody operates without both of them. So, belief is made up of conviction and content both. See, we're dissecting this. Belief is something that I inwardly have any perspective of, but it has a content. I just don't believe myself. See, even that would be something that is believed. I believe I believe something, whatever it may be. This is going to, I'll come bring all this together. Belief is made up of conviction and content. Belief is a conviction, content is what is believed. Propositions addressing the objective content of belief are truth claims. People claim, I know a truth. Now, that judge I mentioned a while ago, I was reading his opinion, he had a truth claim. He thought something was, and I'm thinking, how did he get to that? How did he get to his viewpoint? It didn't just pop in the sky. It came based on something of a conviction he had. But he claims this, well, religious people have convictions and beliefs. Yeah, they do. And so do judges that are not religious.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I believe, here's some. I believe that Oregon is beautiful. That's where I used to live before I moved to Texas. I grew up in Texas, by the way, but I came back. I believe that Oregon is beautiful. That's aesthetic judgment. Can I prove that Oregon is beautiful? Only according to if you accept my viewpoints. What makes something pretty? I tell you, there are people that would go to a desert and say, this is beautiful. It's a value judgment that you put on something.
Yep.
Thomas Jefferson was a primary author of the Declaration of Independence. Historical fact. But any of you there?
Nope.
See? Well, we say, yes, I mean, we know that's true. How do you know it's true? Well, I mean, somebody told me it was true. Oh, that's a lot of proof. See, or it's in this document. I wasn't there and I didn't see it written. We all have to approach information that way. We have a conviction based on certain factors that cause us to think something. By the way, there are people who do the same way with the Bible. I know that's true. I read the Bible on this. Really? I read it too, and I read it differently than you do. Have you ever done that?
Mm-hmm.
Or one person says it's obvious what it means, and I'm saying, you miss some points. You miss this and this and this. So you can come and say dogmatically what is true, what is knowledge, whereas you have really a conviction of it. Are you with me?
Yep.
Octavian Augustus Caesar was emperor of the Roman Empire when Jesus was born. Almost for certain true based on the information we have, but there could be a flaw. More reasonable to argue that he did based on all the information we have. But do we have all the information? That's the point I'm dealing with. We have to be careful about dogmatism. Babies emit brain waves in the first few weeks after conception. Do you know that? I've got a little book I'm writing. I won't tell you the name of it yet, but it's a really interesting name that I came up with. But it's a novel on the abortion issue. And what's amazing in this, the whole question that you say this thing, it's a judgment. This thing is not living. This thing can be taken out and it didn't hurt anybody because it's not a human being. And so forth. It's a matter of how I classify certain particulars. You know, how can you say that something that has human creation and origin and is moving and living and breathing and it even has emission of brain waves that it is not human? How do you say that? I've done a little work on this area, and I assure you, there's no reason to argue that that baby is not a true human being. Remember, Hitler and his crew had no trouble whatsoever taking human beings that were living and killing them.
Yep.
Because they were worthless living people. That's
Yeah,
what
they want to do that now with abortion.
Yeah, same thing.
Take babies.
If you classify it as non-living and non-human, you can do what you want. And a lot of people who kill other people see no value in a lot of people.
Yep, that's true.
So otherwise you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I won't go into any more, but the point of it is it's a value judgment based on factors, but it still comes from a belief of something. God is an infinite being of three persons who share the same essence, but of three in distinction. I would argue the Bible very clearly teaches that idea. Not everybody would agree with me. I think they're wrong because they are. But the point of it is, it's not oftentimes based on good analysis. See, so when I talk about I believe something, the belief has to be based on not simply a statement, but an analysis that causes you to believe it. See, I'm talking about hermeneutics, biblical interpretation, literal grammatical, historical information. See, it's not just simply, well, I believe that the moon is red. Well, is it? Go look. It's not as though I can make a claim and it becomes what I want it to be. I have to base that belief on something substantial. That's why we talk about literal, grammatical, historical interpretation. Okay? Does this make any sense?
Yeah, it sure does.
Okay, truths about belief. All persons, each of you and me, have an innumerable number of beliefs, even beliefs that we have never consciously considered. Here's one for you. I jump on an elevator to go downstairs because I'm going to go to the snack bar. I'm at a hotel. I actually get on that thing and watch the door close with the profound belief that it's not going to start rushing to the floor and kill me in the next 10 seconds. You understand? You don't know the future. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the conditions of the elevator. It may not even be functional. There's lots of things that we take for granted. See? And so all persons have innumerable number of beliefs, even some that have never considered personally. And I'm going to get in a car today and go down the highway, and I'll see you at 6 o'clock, sweetheart, and you get killed at 4. You don't know that. It's a belief. We live our lives with beliefs, but they're not irrational beliefs. I mean, if I normally go out at, let's say, 2 o'clock and I'll be at home at 6 for dinner, and if I've done this 20 or 30 or 50 times, it's reasonable to say, well, it's probably going to, I'll be back home by 6. But I have no basis upon which I can argue that it's true. Are we with each other?
Yeah.
Unconsidered beliefs. I believe the elevator onto which I'm about to step is strong enough to hold the weight of all that's on board. I've thought about that sometimes. I get on an elevator and it's so packed, you think they have a sign up. You only have so many people supposed to be in here. And we say, it's no problem. Yeah, maybe they put that sign up for a reason. You with me?
Yeah.
I believe that I was actually born to my mother and father with whom I reside rather than belonging to someone else and having been kidnapped from the hospital. How would I know that? See? I believe the books of the Bible are the ones that should be included in the canon for scriptures to read and follow. Most of us have not spent a lot of time reading the material historically to know what's what.
Yep.
We just accept it to be true. Now, I don't have any problem with the fact that I can look at a Bible here. I'm looking at one now, an archaeological study Bible, and I run through it, and there's no reason to have a question that, well, I encountered, by the way, I just thought I encountered this yesterday with someone who was concerned about 2 Peter as to whether it was really canonical or not. And I'm saying there's arguments, pros and cons on that. The people argue that. Am I absolutely certain? I wasn't there to see it pinned. It's reasonable to believe that it is, in fact, not an apocryphal work later on, but an actual canonical work, just like Jude and Revelation or whatever. So we oftentimes don't give much consideration. Truths about beliefs. All persons have innumerable number, some that have never been consciously considered. All persons hold false beliefs. All. There's not a one of us that don't sometimes take something for granted and we're wrong. What is truth? What did I say at the very beginning? Justified true beliefs. So we're going to believe. That's not the issue. You can't help from believing things. True is based on analysis and research to know. And can it be justified by evidence? So truth is that which corresponds to reality.
Mm-hmm.
Theories of truth. Correspondence theory of truth is that which corresponds to reality, what is known in the world. It deals with that which is coherent with other personal views, whether or not it is in agreement with objective reality. Pragmatic is something you do by sort of not just simply holding it in your head, but finding it out by your actions, is that which works. It's better to have pragmatic understanding of truth than just, I believe it. In other words, you at least have some basis upon which you make a statement. Are we with each other?
Yep.
You've got to have these kind of ideas to deal with what we call interpretation, at least that which is accurate. Historical, grammatical, literal interpretation. See why we use those words? Everybody, literal, grammatical, historical interpretation. If you go without those and just say, I just believe that it's true, that hasn't got a lot going for it. Feel free to jump in if you have a question. What theory of truth is that? Go ahead.
No, it's good.
Okay. What theory of truth is this? Here it is. I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen. Not only because I see it, but because by it, I see everything else. Now that's C.S. Lewis. Now I want to ask you to think about that for a moment. What kind of theory of truth is that? I believe in Christianity just like I believe in the sun having arisen. Now, think about that for a second. You go outside from your house and you look, and what would you think if you saw something? And I want to say, I think the sun has risen. What would give me reason to say that?
The sun.
Well, One thing, you might be able to see it. You might be able to,
Observation, yeah.
yeah, you might be able to feel it. You might be able to see what it has caused to happen. All that dark stuff went away. You see me, what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's what Lewis is saying. He said, I believe in Christianity as I believe in the sun is risen. How would he know the sun is risen? My good, if he opens his eyes and look outside, there's some good evidence. See? If he gets up at 3 a.m. and looks outside, he probably won't see any evidence of it. See? So he says, I believe in Christianity like I believe in that. Now, what do you think about that argument that he's making, C.S. Lewis?
I think it's a strong evidential argument as we can observe this, the sun has risen. So it looks like an evidential because as you are very expert in archaeology, and there are strong evidential arguments regarding all the truths about the Christianity.
What do you think Lewis means by I believe in Christianity? Is he saying that I have not found all the evidences that might be found to believe in Christianity, but I have rational, reasonable reasons to believe in Christianity because of what I observe? I mean, is that what he's saying?
No, I'm not saying here definite evidences are the rational, but sometimes rationals are just with the arguments. But here I'm saying that those have the physical evidences. Like if you are just taking the analogy of sun here, he is using. So sun can be seen, sun can be feel, and his reason can be observed. So Christianity is a religion that have the evidence of its truth.
If I jump outside and I see the sun, that's one thing. If I see ramifications from what the sun would normally do, could that be something else? That is, there are things about the sun besides looking at it. We see the ramifications of what things it produces. Would you agree?
Yeah.
It produces light and heat and those things I mentioned. Could he be saying that in Christianity, even though he hasn't got all the proof like a son would, is seeing it, the ramifications of the Christian faith have shown it to be actually truth.
I changed lives, yeah.
Yeah.
In his own.
It has ramifications.
Yeah.
Effects.
That all makes sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is what we need to do for thinking processes. Okay?
Critical thinking, yep.
Now, I believe in Christianity as I believe the sun is risen, not only because I see it, because I see everything else by it. Not only do I believe the sun is risen because I see it, but not only by its rising, I can understand the rest of the world. It gives perspective on how the world works with the sun doing what it does. Christianity does not only make sense, it makes sense that helps me to understand other things. That's what's coming from it. Now, how do knowledge and belief relate? We've talked about belief. We've talked about the idea of a belief. And so what does knowledge and belief, how do they relate to one another? There's a difference between knowledge and belief. If truth is known, it is necessarily believed and true. Simply believing in a proposition does not make it known or true. What do you think is being said by that statement? How do knowledge and belief come together? Isn't knowledge a result? That's a result, right? what you end up knowing comes from something that we call believing.
Yep.
So everything that's known is also believed. You can't get to the knowing without the belief. But not all things that are believed are known. That is, you haven't come through a process to get to a conclusion. There's only one requirement. I love these. Oh, you know who David Letterman is? Anybody? Okay, he's really big in Pakistan. Years ago, he had a program at night. David Letterman, ready? There's only one requirement of any of us, and that is to be courageous. Because courage, as you might know, defines all other human behavior. And I believe that because I've done a little of this myself, pretending to be courageous is as good as the real thing. That is an actual statement out of David Letterman. This may be why he's not any longer on the television. But I want you to read that statement. I took that from him. This is another name for what we call gobbledygook. It's a nonsensical statement without any factuality. But people make statements all the time that have no basis in fact. No better than Letterman. I'll get another one for you in a minute. Knowledge requires more than simply believing then. There must be a correspondence of belief to what is true. The belief must have an object in nature. It must function together. Correspondence of belief in truth alone does not constitute knowledge. In order to have a genuine knowledge, one must also have a reason why to accept it. You understand? You can believe and you can be correct. You're right? You can believe something and you can be correct. But the question is, the why can you actually be correct? That's called justification or reason. There must be something in the middle that makes sense of it all. See, you could believe that if you get in an elevator, that it will take you to the floor 15 floors down, let's say, and you'll be okay and step out. You can believe that. Now, is there a reason why to believe that? Well, let's say that thing has gone up and down, 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 and every time it happened the same way. That might be justification.
That might be demonstrated knowledge, wouldn't it? Based on your experience.
Yeah, it does. You have a justification. You believe it to be true, and it becomes true, but there's a reason why your belief is legitimate. This is the concept of knowledge. So here you have it, advanced hermeneutics. You must have truth, you must have belief, you must have justification. And you can't go one without the other. It's like love and marriage. The song, love and marriage goes together like a horse and carriage. See, you got to have something. See, isn't that a great song? Okay. Now, so belief and truth and justification make up knowledge. You can't know something without belief. You can't know something without actual justification. These things are necessary. Here's one from Julia Roberts. I don't know if you know that one. These movie stars are really great at this stuff. I believe that two people are connected at the heart, and it doesn't matter what you do or who you are or where you live. That's the conclusion. There are no boundaries or barriers if two people are destined to be together. And I wrote, huh? People make all sorts of nonsensical statements, but you know what? I can't really throw too much at her I hear Christians interpreting the Bible not much better, or developing theology not much better. You really have to have the components that I'm talking about.
See, in that Julia Roberts thing, it's all good until you live in the same house and somebody doesn't take out the trash.
You think that would change things?
Well, it doesn't change things. It just puts a damper on the.
Are you familiar with this character I have here?
Yeah.
By the way, he's on hard times right now. He's lost about half of his church in a few months.
Yeah, there's like only 10,000 going. Hey, by the way, when you mentioned that love and marriage thing, I heard deep in the background the person behind the curtain, that we've identified as Oz, chuckle with you. So that gave it more credibility to me.
Yeah, I think so. That works. Well, listen, Joel Osteen. I mean, here's a man, here's a theologian. You know, I have never watched him purposely. I've listened. I mean, I listened once, and I was there once, and I thought this is ridiculous. And I listened to him on Larry King Live or something like that. And he at the very end of the program, Larry King had given him, and Larry King was a Jewish non-believer.
Yep.
And he gave him at least 3 or 4 opportunities to give a gospel message. It's like if you have Franklin Graham, son of Billy Graham, you get him on the program, he won't be 30 minutes, he won't be 30 seconds into the program before he's already given a statement of the gospel. Okay? Joel Osteen, he blew it here, blew it here, blew it. Larry King Live kept giving him opportunities. He wouldn't do anything. And at the end of it, he says, he said, I think I maybe should have gone to seminary. I thought, boy, he need to go somewhere. Listen, I believe that if you keep your faith, and I believe that if you keep your trust, and I believe that if you keep the right attitude, and I believe that if you're grateful, you'll see God open up new doors. And I was thinking, boy, brilliant thinker. I can see it already.
Yeah, that's a definition of word of faith.
It is. Look, does a conclusion follow from the statements? Not a chance.
Oh.
So what is justification then as we finish? Justification is the logical link between belief and truth. Unless you can have justification, unless you have a reason why something is true, you can't get from faith to truth. It's that component that's necessary. That's true in hermeneutics and understanding, you're going to see. What counts as proper justification? Beliefs that lack proper justification are irrational. Also, belief is properly justified if it's deemed to be rational. That is, people must have rational thoughts. You just can't make a statement and assume that it's right. You have to have a basis of your argument. If you're involved in the issue of what I'm talking about here with hermeneutics, theological methods, you have to follow a process that's very, very clearly defined and follows rules that are rational in nature. And that's why I gave it, for example, I have no problem with saying that, and I saw the cowboy movie and he kicked the bucket. If I know that that is an idiom, that's a figurative speech for, in the cowboy movie time, that's a figurative speech for being killed, see, or for dying. But it has to have that rationality connected to it. Doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
Professor.
So, yes.
Yeah, I need a clarity here. As Paul says that faith is actually the belief on unseen things. Yeah. Here in our country, just let me make clear question. In our country here, because we live here in a country where people believe on the things, those don't have any justification, any rational logical reason behind that. They just believe here in my context. and they are using common people. They are just trapping or using the term that faith is just to believe on unseen things. But I feel so unseemly, not irrational. I'm right on that.
Well, think about this a moment. The Bible in Hebrews tells us that many of us have entertained angels not knowing it. Okay, that's an example, right?
Yep.
Do you think it is possible, based on what we know in the scriptures about angels, that angels might do certain things on behalf of God for human beings? Well, see, I look at the scriptures because I believe them to be true and rational statements. They're not just mythologies.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems I have with some of these guys arguing this thing about Adam and Eve. This all occurred by evolution, even though the Bible text reads quite differently. They say Genesis chapter 1 is just all mythology, never happened. It's just reflecting ancient Near Eastern myths. And I'm thinking, does this follow from rational thought even? The statement I gave you from that professor, I wish I could think of his name. I've got it here somewhere written down. But a guy who's a Nobel Prize Ph.D. from Harvard, and he says, I would rather believe in the impossible that I know didn't happen, can't happen. It's rather that I believe in it than believe in God because I don't want to. What kind of argument is that? That's not much of an argument in reference to what we've been talking about.
Someone that's not a scientist, just one that's playing science.
Well, but there are a lot of scientists who they don't have the evidence really, but they need something else to rely upon rather than believe in God. They're humanists to the core.
Yeah,
And
Dr. House, I heard, which really shocked me. I heard the discussion about how Christopher Hitchin died. Did you hear that?
no.
Throat cancer. And he couldn't talk for 18 months before he passed.
Huh.
Remember the atheist debater?
Yeah. Well, I wonder what was going through his head.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
see, people who have PhDs can be irrational. See, that statement that this guy made is an irrational statement. And so, notice I've given you criteria. They have to be logical. There must be consistent with experience, with evidence, basic beliefs. You just don't say nonsensical things. There has to be a basis in what we say. See, if I say, do I believe that there is a God? Have I ever seen God? The answer is no. Okay. On the other hand, is it rational to believe that someone, something caused the universe as we know it to have occurred? Because you have both a object and that which produces an object. You can't just look at it and say the universe created itself.
That's right.
So if it didn't
Too
create,
much order.
yeah, too much order. There's too many things that are inconsistent with just something happening by accident. So something must happen by some design. And this is why if you go to, if you happen to look at my study Bible in chapter 1, if you go there and look at what the philosophers of Greece even said, they couldn't move away from the fact that we know there must be some existence, something that's existent that makes something that now is existent itself. In other words, you have to have some basis upon an event occurring.
And they made a statue at Mars Hills for that.
Yeah, first cause that you have to have something, and so I can't explain everything about God, but I do know that reading the Bible and thinking about God makes far more sense than what other people are arguing who reject it. Now, I haven't got that many more years left. I mean, I know I keep getting older. My birthday is the 31st of August. I'm going to turn 34. Well, a little more.
You are younger than me, Professor.
Do you think that the lady behind the curtain could make us a chocolate double layer cake for us?
That would make as much sense. No, I'm going to turn 78, and I was born in 48,
Oh,
and the same year that Israel was made a nation. And you know the thing is, I have no idea how long I will live, but I do know that you don't live forever in this situation. And so, am I going to just trust myself or trust in something beyond myself that is rational to believe in? And when I read scripture, I am thoroughly convinced that it is rational in nature. When I read the Genesis account, when I read other things in the Bible, they're not just fairy tales, they're not just fables. They're based on relationships and events and so forth. It seems to demonstrate. For example, I'm always amazing that one of these guys that I'm talking about says, we know, see, he says, we know that the that Adam and Eve were never talked to by a snake. Snakes don't talk. And I'm thinking, has this guy ever read Numbers 22? It says that God calls a donkey to talk to Balaam. A very convincing argument, by the way. And how did that donkey talk? Well, that couldn't have happened either. We know donkeys don't talk. Or what about he said, but God was walking in the garden and talking to them. That couldn't be true. And then I think about Genesis 18, where it talks about that God and two angels came to Abram, or maybe an Abraham by that time, and his wife Sarah, and look, had their feet washed, ate a good meal. He stayed to talk to Abraham and Sarah about the birth of Isaac. And then he talked later about Sodom and Gomorrah and sent the angels. I'm saying, is that likely to happen in this guy's world? Well, see, there is no problem if you believe God exists and can do all these things. See, I don't have to have every jot and tittle proof. Matter of fact, if I rejected those biblical statements, how would I ever accept that Jesus could take two fish, a few loaves, and feed over 20,000 people? Could that really happen? Or could he really walk on water? Ever try that sometime? The fact is, the Bible is a book that demonstrates miraculous things, but it's not based on irrationality. It's based on what we've come to know about a divine being who has all power. See, I started with something justified, true belief. See what I'm saying? There has to be a justification, a part of the process to come to knowledge. So, criteria. If it's logical, consistent with experience and evidence and basic belief, is probably something that's basic and believable. That's, I think, what we work with. So I've already given that to you here. Now, here's an example of some beliefs that I would suggest not to have happen. God told me to marry my husband. I don't know if God's in that business or not. I suppose it's a possibility, but I read a book by a guy whose name will go unmentioned, who taught us a school up in the area of Minnesota, and he would sort of function under this that you're going to get this kind of direct information from God. I suppose it's possible, but it's not as likely. Any two or three people who love each other should be able to be married. God woke me up last night. Here's a good one. Joseph Smith received golden plates from an angel. So you have to look at statements like this. And here's another one. Jesus rose from the dead. You have Schweitzer, who was a physician, did a lot of work in Africa, Albert Schweitzer, and he didn't believe in the resurrection. He said Jesus simply, he never really died. He got it from the tomb, and he started acting like he was, resurrected, and he just played a part. You have Rudolf Bultmann said, a New Testament scholar, very well known. He said, the fact is, resurrections are contrary to science. So Jesus could not have been resurrected from the dead. So you can come to these things with views. I had a person tell me, and what would you do with this one? A student in my class who said, Dr. House, Jesus visits me on a regular basis. He comes into my room and we sit together and we talk. Now, would you believe that to happen or not? How would you deal with that?
Well, depends on what they talked about, if it brought any kind of repentance. If it brought, depends on what they were talking about, and because it's really hard to go against somebody's own personal experience. And I personally would have to question it, but you can also crush somebody's spirit doing that.
It's a hard thing. My problem was the fact that it was this regular thing going on.
Yeah, you got to do some digging.
Yeah. But see, I wonder about what had happened in Iran recently, when you've had a lot of young people with seemingly experiences with Christ. And are you familiar with that, Shabbat? There's been, being a lot of that among Christianity growing there. I suppose it's possible for it to happen.
Well, they've had 50,000 mosques closed. That's been quite extensively reported. I should mention this to you. I was in a church here in St. Pete, and there was a debate where God was appearing to people in dreams in the Muslim world. The Lord was, and saying that He was really God, not Allah. And so there was quite a debate in some Reform circles that couldn't have been happening, and the Lord wouldn't do all that. And they had scriptural support for it. So I wander into this church. It was the second time my wife and I were there. This guy was telling this firsthand story that he had just come from dropping off a turkey at a church. And as he was there with the pastor said that a car rolled up in the parking lot, which took him by surprise because everything was closed. And two Muslims got out of the car, and believe it or not, I think they were from Pakistan. And they said, we are looking for someone who is a Christian that can help us. We went to the Catholic Church, nobody was there. We went to this church, nobody was there. And we see you guys outside exchanging a turkey. And they explained to them that they had both woke up with nearly identical dreams, with the Lord telling them that He was God and not Allah, and that they needed to go find somebody to talk to that would share the gospel with them. And this guy had just come from that.
Well, see, I am of the belief that certain things like that do happen because we have examples in Scripture with being released from prison. Jesus,
Yeah.
Peter, that wasn't a normal situation. That we have existence. I mean, that we're out of the sky. Even Saul receiving Christ Himself at that point, and that was very dynamic in nature. on the road to Damascus. So in view of the Hebrews passage, it says that there are examples of being, without knowing it, even angels appeared unto us. So I think those are credible. But we have to at least evaluate them in light of
Yeah.
the kind of arguments I'm talking about here.
Yep, that's excellent. Yep.
Here we have just story even in our church. There was a guy because legal conversion is banned in Pakistan. If someone from Islam to come in Christianity, his punishment is just to kill, because in Arabic or in Muslim Sharia law,
Yeah.
there is a statement or code that if someone left the Islam, he need to be died now. He will no more he will no more live on this earth. But a Muslim guy came from somewhere in another city, and he said that I have been converted, and the whole story behind was the dream. That Jesus, I saw the Jesus in dream, and he said, "You go and do all the stuffs." We try our best to just figure out or analysis his case, uh, and invite him in our church. That was too risky in our church even, but that was a secret believer, not very open believer that I'm converting from Islam. And no, he was just secret believer. But the challenge was that guy was already married. Then he married a Christian girl, and he also married another Christian girl. So when he did this twice in Christianity, then we come to know that his dreams and his love for Christianity and Christ was fake. So there is nothing behind that, that he is a true believer. His intention, till now, I'm not clear on his case that what was his intention to be a Christian, because he married thrice, one marriage in Muslim and two marriages with Christian girls in Pakistan.
And that's all permissible. So, but what is the fact is he married the Christians when that would normally happen.
Marriages?
Yeah.
No, it's not, because his second Christian marriage was also in secret.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It was actually dishonesty. He was not faithful with his first Christian wife.
Let me give you a story. What do you think? I was having to rush to take someone that we know to the airport. I had a fire, and I had a tire that went out totally, and I pulled to the side of the road. Guy in a truck pulled right in behind me. Okay, just right there. Walked over with all the stuff I needed, fixed the tire, and got it all fixed up. I had been standing looking at the car. I turned around to say thank you, and there was no him or no truck. I mean, it
Dr.
happened.
Howe, that happened to my daughter. That exact same thing.
I mean, there's no way he could get away that
No,
fast. And I wondered about that so much. I thought, there's got to be something really different. Well, it had to be something supernatural, because how he fixed the tire, he got it done. I barely had, it was like a second later, I turned around to thank him, and he's gone and the truck is gone. And I thought, this is weird.
yeah,
And so I don't know, God does things that we don't always understand.
Yeah,
But
I do believe.
and we do have to have some rational beliefs instead of making up stuff like some of the ones we looked at. So anyway, let me move on. I think you could all agree that Joseph Smith didn't get the plates from the angel. Okay.
Yeah.
Mormon.
only way that I'll believe that he got it is that he had ribs on the plates. That would make it way better.
Well,
I would believe it then.
let's move to lecture 2, the nature of meaning, interpretation, and application. Okay. Now, what is the concept of meaning? Essentially, from Hirsch's view, the idea of meaning is something that is actually in the mind and intent of the author. In other words, it's not something that's produced apart from the author. It is that actually which comes out of the author by what the author intends by the words he is speaking. And so, in looking at the philosophy of meaning, this becomes important. I'm going to talk here. Then what is meaning then? Here it is. That which is represented by a text. Who writes a text? The author of the text, right? So, meaning is that which is represented by a text. It is what the author meant by his use of a particular sign or sequence. It's what the signs represent. Now, do you see anything here that would even relate to what we've been talking about at all? When you get to the issue of writing a text, whether it be the Bible or whether it be a novel or whatever it may be, when an author writes, how does that fulfill the idea if you're going to be on the other end of it and understand it? Is it possible to misunderstand what an author intends if the author has well stated what he intends? What's the likelihood of understanding the actual words? See, think about a guy in a church service or whatever, and your context. Think about a guy who says, I think this scripture means such and such. Can the scripture mean just anything, or does it mean something because of a reason? These things are not unrelated, but we move from the idea of basic way that we work as humans in reference to belief and understanding and conclusions and so forth. But can words mean just anything that that just happens to be on a page, or do they have to come out of an author's mind and his intention in putting the words like he puts the words? This gets real special because you have a lot of people coming up with a lot of ideas that the Bible never discusses. And it's not what the text is talking about.
Yeah.
How would you find the meaning? What's in the writing that gives rise to meaning? I've got the answer here. It's not just anything you want it to be.
Oh, I think the book that Elliot Johnson wrote, and I'm probably about 3/4 maybe through it, but it's taken me a while because it's so good. He's talking about the big A author and the little a author in the same line, and that part is so important to know when you're talking biblically. So this is a powerful statement. Sounds commonsensical, but a lot of times we want to put what we want in it. Just go to a Bible study in a church. They'll say, well, what do you think it means? It's enough to drive you nuts.
Well, yeah, people can sit around and just throw things around, but they've never even thought through the whole issue. They've never thought through what's in the passage. They have not looked at any context. They see just a verse or a few words and they put meaning to it, and it may have nothing whatsoever to do with the context.
Bingo. And I'm surprised because I'm surprised at the fact that when I say challenge people, have you studied this yourself, or did you just get this as a talking point from the pulpit or the internet? Because
Okay.
if you start talking to people about these things, especially the stuff that's coming out of the atheists, they're all just talking points. And then once you press back, the person typically hasn't, like you said, thought it through. You know, like we in the charismatic movement believed a whole wide range of things that we never studied to even understand if we knew why we believe what we believed. And in fact, we find out later that most of the people in the pulpit have never done that either. So all we're doing is repeating what other people are saying without challenging why we believe what we believe, which is why this is so important.
Words have certain meanings, and they can't mean everything in every context.
Yeah.
So, what is that meaning represented in that text? A person doesn't just put a word in, they have to put a word into a framework of words. The words have to be, they're signs that go somewhere that express something in the mind. And so when a person just uses anything arbitrarily without any designation as to what is meant from the framework from which he writes, then it becomes nonsensical, quite honestly. And so if you understand that you have to read words within a framework of what an author is doing. By the way, it also must be in the context of something that's happening. For example, if a person's writing in a passage, let's say, and he uses a particular word, and the whole passage is discussing something, let's say, like a church meeting, and all of a sudden he starts saying something that has nothing to do and never would happen within a context of a church meeting, then this doesn't reflect what's in here. That is, there must be a framework in which words operate, in which a meaning is found. That's one of the problems in this whole thing I write in my articles in 1 Corinthians. You said, I think Richard Good said you'd had some of that or not? I don't know. But, I was at the time I wrote that,
Yep.
I was at a Pentecostal. And when
You were
I
at a what? You were
I
at
was
a what?
preacher, Assemblies of God.
Yep. You were Assemblies of God preacher?
Yes.
Oh,
And when I read those passages, and not on the basis of what people did in the church, but what Paul discussed in the passage. And I thought, some of these things just don't fit
that's right.
into what I see in the church,
Yep.
because Paul actually is talking about another phenomenon than they even know about.
Yep.
And so, very careful study going through that. Those articles received a lot of attention, but I was trying to deal with, you have a Corinthian church who has all sorts of practices that have nothing to do with the intent of God and giving those capabilities.
Right.
And people began to use them for their own purposes and not for what God was talking about in the text.
Yeah, and it's funny because I I I appreciated the article so much. It gave so much background. I'm actually working on a book, like you were saying, called "The Death of Prayer in the Church,"
Ooh,
and the reason for the death of prayer is if I was taught, because as you know, Pentecostalism. I was saved in an E-free church, and then I was 16. I ended up in a Pentecostal church, and the guy was trying to tell me that he needed to pray for me so that I could have a language someplace. And then the way to get that language is to show God faith by moving your tongue around in your mouth faster and faster and faster and faster, and you're gonna make gibberish sounds. So for years, that was considered speaking in tongues. And the problem is it doesn't line up with like Acts 2, nor does it line up with 1 Corinthians 14:2, which is their go-to verse, which is if you have a Spanish speaker, and you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but if you have a Spanish speaker coming into an English church and speaking Spanish, the English can't understand it. You're just talking mysteries, but you're not to God because he understands Spanish.
Yeah.
Because that's a plain reading too. Their version is a plain reading. But the death of prayer is this. If the Lord gave them, the disciples, Matthew 6 through 13, on how to pray for in God's will, how is gibberish going to give you any kind of prayer? So it robs people of praying in God's will and the absolute joy of doing that.
But see, this is what was going on in the pagan world. The church that Corinth was, the church of Corinth, they were involved in a culture that was very much into gibberish language.
Yep.
It was done by the oracle at Delphi. It was done in the local Corinthian church. It's a fact that they didn't do it for the purpose that God had it. I won't go into all my article and so forth, but the point of it is that just simply bringing words out that are unintelligible has, Paul said, have worthless value. Here, what we used to do, I grew up in one church, it was Pentecostal, and then I came up, and that was too crazy. I went to seminaries after that, but I watched people, and the point of it is, we would tell people at the altar as we're trying to get them over to the tongues, we would say, just say this, say, shunda.
Show God faith.
Yes,
Show God.
yes.
Yeah.
And gradually, God's going to take that tongue and it's going to start saying other words. And obviously, the words that we said after the shundadii weren't any more words than shundadii.
Yeah.
We used to have fun. Anyway, Shikamo Shai passed on by and the snake group was going. But I'm just telling you my experience.
That's me too.
Fact, the same thing. But see, the fact is, if they were actually saying true lexical, meaningful words by the Spirit of God, I'm not going to fight it.
Yep.
But on the other hand, we were just trying to coach people to say something that didn't mean anything so we could claim another convert who was baptized in the Spirit. So, I think the Corinthians had a similar kind of phenomenon. They were trying to follow the Greeks with their language that were unintelligible to be somewhat in competition with the pagan world with what they were doing. And so people can do things like that. And we've got to stay with the text. Of course, we've moved a little farther here. But the fact is, you must read a text in its context with an intent based on what you can read carefully in the context, grammatical, historical, literal, but also contextual interpretation. And context is important.
What I loved about your article, which I didn't put the two dots together, I knew about the Oracle of Delphi and what they were basically smoking volcanic fumes and then spitting out like garbledygook, but I didn't connect them to what you said about it being tongues. And that's where that comes from. And so I just thought,
yeah,
that was good. Good connection there, sir.
Well, take a look in the study Bible when you get to it on that passage in 12 or 14.
Okay.
I shared a few things there. Well, listen, so we get to the fact of meaning. Meaning is not just simply a bunch of words. Meaning has words in a context with an intent. See, and that is very, very important. Let's keep moving or I'll have you guys be doing the same thing again. Verbal meaning is whatever someone has willed. See the word willed? intent.
Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
to convey by a particular sequence. That's important too. You just can't put words together. They have to be a sequence and an intent and contextual of linguistic signs. Those are what we call words, and which can be conveyed or shared by means of those linguistic signs. You get all the technology in there. The fact is, they must be understandable, conveyable. They must have a function. They must have a meaning. All these things have to go into real statements. Otherwise, it becomes what we call gobbledygook. That's,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's a word that people use. If you have an unintelligible language in speaking, then it's all it is gobbledygook, as you say. Now, illustrations of type meaning. Here, this becomes important. Notice my great artwork. Actually, I have no idea where I got those, but they convey the idea. Illustration of type meanings. For example, a bush has certain things that makes it what it is. For example, if a bush had no branches of any sort and no leaves of any sort, it wouldn't be a bush. A tree, for example, has to have certain things that makes it different than a bush. So just because here's a key, this is important, just because you have some similarity does not mean that you're talking about the same thing. That's important. So notice a bush has this. It has leaves, has form and substance, like even a cantaloupe has form and substance. I mean, everything has to have certain things. Leaves, form and substance, has to have a color, has to be a plant by definition, has roots and has branches. This makes a bush a bush. If it didn't have these elements to it, it wouldn't be a bush. But look at a tree. A tree has leaves and form and substance and color and plant and roots and branches. So why isn't a tree a bush? It shares commonality, but it has distinction. There's this key. We're getting really into the concept of meaning and understanding things. It may have commonality with another thing. You see this in people's arguments. You see in people's writings. There's commonality, but distinction between what is being talked about. And so a bush and a tree share a commonality, but they also have distinction. And a tree has a trunk. Now there may be more. I'm not a horticulturist. I don't go out and deal with trees all the time. But the fact is, there are things that are different between them that make them not the same. By the way, did you know what? Here it is. Listen to this. Now, don't call me a heretic. God thinks and I think. God speaks and I speak.
Image.
God exists and I exist. It's not how, here's the key. It is not how things are similar. That's the issue about a reality. It's how they are distinct and different. See, God thinks and I think, but that doesn't make me God. God exists and I exist. That doesn't make me God. And I could go on. The point of it is, even with us, remember, God made human beings in his own image, does not mean that God has hands and arms and legs and so forth. He made us to be similar to what he is. He didn't make something that's really weird like. God doesn't need arms like we have arms to do things or hands to do things, but he does things, and he's created humans to be able to function similar to himself in some respects by giving them arms and legs and eyes. So we function in the image of God, but that does not mean that we and God are any different from this bush and tree. You get my point? We have some points in common. We have a lot of points dissimilar. So, and that's true with angels even. There's similarity and dissimilarity. So we have to be careful what we're talking about. This is what we mean by type meaning. Things can seem similar and they're not, things can seem the same, I should say, but they're actually only similar in their meaning. Are you with me on that understanding?
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
This becomes very important later on in interpretation. So you have a human author and a divine author. You can have one meaning, but many implications. For example, who determines the meaning of Scripture? Well, God writes the Scripture. Human authors write scriptures. Sometimes we have meaning that may not be it may not be as I'm trying to think of a term, majestic as much as God's is. I mean, we might mean the same thing, but not in the same way sometimes. So even that can come in. Now, E.D. Hirsch, that I've encouraged you to read. By the way, I should tell you the book that he wrote, to me, is one of the most important books I've read in the last 2 decades, maybe even longer. I read it back in the 80s, so that's more than 2. But the point of it is, Hirsch made a tremendous impact on my mind, and is one of the more important books that I've ever read. In his book, in his statement, Banishing the Author, he says a normal way that would understand what a text means is what the author means by it. Yet this view is questioned by many today, though it is only reasonable that a text means what the author means by it. He says if the author is banished, there's no one as the author over the text, but the critic or reader. What he's saying is he's knocking postmodernistic interpretation. A person can look at a passage and see some components and say, well, that means this, without ever really thoroughly looking at the author's ideas. In fact, the author and the person may have similarity of meaning, but they do not have the same meaning. Do you understand what I've just said?
I think so.
In other words, we can read a passage and have a meaning in our head that is similar to the author, but it may not be if we didn't read carefully enough, and we may not have the same meaning as the author. I would suggest to you that that occurred in the 1 Corinthians 12 passage with people in certain groups. They came to a meaning that had some semblance to it, but great distinction, because they didn't understand by research, they didn't understand what was going on in that culture, what was happening in that culture, and what Paul would have meant when he wrote the words, because he's in a setting different from what they are in their local church. And so they came to a meaning that has some components that are like what Paul's talking about, but missed the big issue. You understand that now?
Mm-hmm.
See, I think that's the problem we run into, because people actually are ignoring all the things the author is saying and imposing something that they bring to the text. And usually what it is, Richard, is they bring into the text their own experience in the church.
Yeah.
And then they have to interpret it as being the meaning of the text, because that's what they're practicing.
Yep.
And they don't want it to be anything else.
Yep. And their experiences pile on.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wish they would read the text more carefully. If you read chapter 12 and 13 and 14 all at once and carefully discern the components of what Paul argues, you can't get to where they go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about something altogether different in the culture. Okay, continue.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, to add this, I had a story in our men's Bible study where a guy he was really good. He didn't have any theological training, but he loved God and he loved the Bible. And when we were talking about this, as far as tongues with the Lord's Prayer, he ended up, he said, "Well, I just pray in my mind and then speak in tongues." And I said, "Well, didn't you just pray in your mind in English? So why make the extra garble?" He had no answer.
I know that's a good analysis. Anyway, we've got to be careful that we don't abandon what the author is actually getting at.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
today you have these things. I mentioned some feminist reading of the text, black reading of the text, whatever reading you want to, Pentecostal reading of the text. The point of it is the text is not controlled by us, by some kind of perspective that we've developed. We need to come to the text honestly and straightforward, read it carefully, and not impose our own views on it. And for example, quite honestly, if you're going to do real Bible study, you've got to take time to really get back into the mind and the culture of what you're reading, because we're in quite a different situation today than they were, let's say, 2,000 years ago. So you have to, that's why studying history and studying different things and context and arguments are important to come to a meaning that is a proper meaning. There's also not a Calvinist reading of the text.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's really true too. What would you do, both of you, Chavez, because you're in a church too? I was standing with a friend that was a pastor, and I happened to be in his office. We were talking about something, and he had gone to Dallas, and one of the things that he said to me was, he goes, "Well, I really like the new NIV. They've taken all the gender out, and that'll be great for if we have any daughters and my wife." And I went, "What did you say?" And he said, "Yeah, they're making it genderless or whatever. I don't know how you do that, but anyhow, the long and short of it is that I couldn't believe that. I was just sitting there thinking, where are we headed as at this church? How would you guys respond to that?
I know much about this because have you ever heard of the Council on Biblical Manhood and Womanhood? We actually came into existence, and I became the president at the time.
I think so, because didn't you do some egalitarian statements?
Well, we deal with the issues. John Piper, Wayne Grudem, just a bunch of people, and I was asked to be the president. And we worked on this a long time. And that became a major issue that we brought up. In the nearly inspired version of the NIV, I always joke on
newly inspired version. I caught that, mister.
That's just but I knew the people, but see what they were doing, they were trying to fit the Bible into the current culture. Yeah. And that's my purpose in reading or translating the Bible, is to fit it into my own issue. Yeah. And that's what they were doing. So translations that are trying to meet a cultural demand are really not good. Yeah. And we've got to be careful how we translate the Bible. I'll give you another example. Some of the Bible translations today, maybe shouldn't go into all the particulars, but they give authors very little time to translate. Yeah. 10 minutes per verse. And I want you to know that if you're doing much study and reading and translation of the Bible, that it takes longer than that. I may spend,
my goodness, yes,
20 or 30 minutes just looking up a word for different places. So it was as a way to get to a conclusion without all the accuracy that should be connected. That's why mistranslations that go on in John 15 with the so-called cutting never occurs. The Greek word "iro" has nothing to do with cutting a branch. It means to lift up a branch. And I read 2 books on horticulture, went to Israel and actually looked at the vineyards and saw how they did it. And they did it exactly the way the viticulture mentions it. And it's the way it would have been in the Bible, but they totally screwed it up because they're in a hurry to get it out. And so there's a lot of that kind of thing going on as we deal with the Bible, and we have to hold people to the fire on it. One, I won't go into names here, but one of the leaders of one of the committees on a couple of these different books, I had to get to them and say, listen, you've got to change your translation. And both of them eventually translated it differently because it was all wrong. They were bringing a theology into it that had nothing to do with the Greek. So
Can
We
you, without naming the person, can you tell us the volumes that you're referring to so we don't buy them?
I don't know if I remember exactly which ones, but I'll tell you, if you look in the translations, if you look in John 15, it says nothing about cutting off. That has nothing to do with how viticulture worked in the ancient world. And what they did is they actually, and by the way, I took my Greek dictionary and I've got about lexicons. I probably got 15 different lexicons from different periods. I looked up at every lexicon, and every single one without exception took the word iro to mean to lift up. None of them say cut off. That's a nonsensical concept in viticulture.
Yeah, and
And
cutoff always means death in Hebrew.
yeah. So anyway, that's wrong. Then in Galatians 1 passage where they dealt with the word anathema, and they put it, see these translations. If you look at a translation and it says, if you don't agree with me, what Paul says, what I'm teaching, then, may you go to hellfire. May you burn in hell. These are found there. All these things about burning in hell and hellfire. You know what? Anathema in a Jewish context doesn't mean eternal punishment. That's another one they use. What
Yeah.
it means is that you are in violation of God's standards and you will suffer for it. For example, that's the whole issue in Jewish culture. When you had the covenant, if you disobeyed, he would punish you. If you didn't disobey and you did right, he would bless you. But it has nothing to do with hellfire and brimstone. And
Hmm.
you have these translations that do stuff like that. And there are many other kinds of examples of that where they're not careful as they translate because they're trying to rush to get out there a new translation.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you none of that would be in the House Visual Study Bible. Okay, let's keep moving. So it is common today to hear the feminist reading, black reading, this reading, that reading. It would be like an amillennialist reading of the text, or a Calvinist reading of the text, or a Mormon reading of the text, all of which there is no final meaning possible in the biblical text. So
Yeah.
they're creating their own thing. Now, Her says if the work's meaning had changed instead of the author himself, then the author would not have need to repudiate his meaning and could have spared himself the discomfort of a public recantation. No doubt the significance of the work to the author had changed a great deal. That is, an author has to be careful. And of course, here, this is not as much for us in biblical text because the authors are people who are prophets and disciples of Christ who actually translated the Bible. But when you bring in, I shouldn't say they wrote the text, but when you have people dealing with the meaning of the text or the translation of the text, it's very important not to change the author's original meaning.
Yeah.
Very, very, very important. Determining the type. Type is an entity with two decisive characteristics. It's an entity that has a boundary. You can't say everything in anything. It has a boundary. The second decisive characteristic of a type is it can always be represented by more than one instance. What he means by this is you can have a type mean something, but it doesn't mean the same thing necessarily in any context. So now I'm looking at our time. We have about 9 minutes left. I'm trying to think. Let me look here just a second. Let's see.
Yeah, I shouldn't have slowed you down.
Okay, huh?
I said I shouldn't have slowed you down.
Oh, no, that's fine. We're going to take it on. Hopefully, we'll pick up another person or so tomorrow, and then we'll be moving on. We're going to do this for several weeks.
Are we meeting 2 days in a row?
I don't,
I think
it's
just once a week, right?
18th
Yeah,
through
once a week. Just once a week.
18th through October 6th. That's several weeks. I haven't counted it yet, but you've got 2 or 3 days in at least a couple days in August. Then you got all of September. Then you got the 1st of October. So we've got time to get through this. I just want to really try to help you to get in your mind some of these ideas of how meaning works, and it
It's
will have
really good.
a lot to do in what we got to say.
Yeah.
And it's about a few minutes. I did give you a break at midway, so I think I'm going to let you go a little bit early. But it's good to have you. And if you have any questions, always feel free to send me an email. I think you can send something to me through Calvary, can't you? If
Yeah, I actually sent you a request to be able to use some of your articles as is on our blog.
yeah, and I don't mind as long as you recognize that
Yep.
I wrote them.
Yep, you're author. You're the author. So
And that you don't totally change what's on there.
yeah, well, we wouldn't change anything.
Ain't is an Armenian charismatic.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you. You guys have a good night. And Shabazz, what time is it where you are?
It's a 7 a.m. and I have to get ready for my job now.
Well, I have a dog that just came
I
in here.
saw him. I saw him. I'm still wondering if you're going to be bringing in
Go
next
out.
week.
Ah,
I wonder if you're going to be bringing to us a double layer chocolate cake for your
on your
birthday.
birthday. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could bring it and eat it in front of you.
Well, that's as good as getting it.
Are you desiring that? Each of us bring our own and we can eat together.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that's cool.
Okay. God's blessings on you. I enjoyed being with you tonight. We'll sort of start moving a little bit more next week.
Yeah.
And let me encourage you, take a look at the study Bible. It's very inexpensive, $5 a month. And I need something to pay the guy that does all this. This guy behind the scenes who does this, his work is immaculate. It's amazing what he's capable. He's a genius. And I think when you start looking at this stuff, it's got so much there for you. And so, but if not, you can get some of that freebie stuff on my website. Okay.
Well, listen,
Sure,
thank you
Professor.
very much and blessings to you guys.
Same here.
Chavez, it's nice to
Sure.
meet you and get to know you.
Bye-bye.
Same here, brothers. God bless you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Brother Richard.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Now I'm going to save this. I'm going to stop recording.